I think he's disgraceful. I genuinely think that's one of the worst, I don't even know, announcement videos I've ever seen. No accountability, no reflection.
I went on CNN and called out everybody over this Graham Platner scandal. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Your home for independent perspective and commentary on news, politics, media, internet, culture, and more. And I'm a little tired, to be honest, because I had a very late night last night. I was on the 10 p.m. panel debate show Newsnight on CNN with host Abby Phillip, where we kind of hash things out and they bring in people with very different perspectives to actually talk to each other in person. I think it's a very interesting show concept, and I do appreciate the debate and the conversation that I've been able to have on there the few times I've been on, but I get all hyped up and then I don't end up falling asleep till like 2 a.m. So I'll be flying home today, back in Miami and back to my regular usual business pretty soon. But I did want to go over a couple clips from my appearance where I spoke about Graham Platner and the scandal that's kind of been broken out among Democrats after very credible sexual assault allegations against him have caused him to drop out. But I talked about how it really should never have made it this far and just how disgraceful I found it. And apparently people found this clip that I'm about to play for y'all, found it powerful. So let's watch that and then discuss.
Just got my little violin out for him. You got to feel so bad. He's playing the victim. It was really probably AIPAC that made him get a Nazi tattoo, lie about it for years. It was probably AIPAC that made him allegedly physically abuse a Republican woman he used to date. And it was probably AIPAC or the establishment or something that made this latest accusation. I think he's disgraceful. I genuinely think that's one of the worst, I don't even know, announcement videos I've ever seen. No accountability, no reflection, just a weird combination of backing away but also denying the allegation, not even standing on business. This whole thing is such a black eye for the Democratic Party writ large, though. It's not just him. They're doing the right thing eventually. But where was this energy when Lindsay Fifield came forward? Yes, she's a Republican operative. Doesn't mean she couldn't be a victim. She had contemporaneous corroboration that Graham Platner, that she said at the time, physically abused her and locked her in a room. That should have been enough for the Believe Women Democrats. Zoran didn't withdraw the endorsement, didn't withdraw support. Bernie didn't. What are we doing here?
So it's interesting that this clip is getting shared around by all the like right-wing Twitter accounts that clip up media and share like owns and whatever. And I appreciate it. Like trust me, I love a little spotlight. I love a little attention. And I stand on 10 toes down on everything I said there. I think it's absolutely disgraceful what they've done and how the Democrats have handled this issue. But of course, that clip gets shared by the right-wing accounts and ignored by all the left-leaning like aggregator accounts. And then the clip I'm going to show you after gets totally ignored by all the right-leaning aggregator accounts and gets shared like crazy by all the left-leaning aggregator accounts. It's almost like social media is echo chambers and bubbles, and people would be better served if they actually consumed the whole segment, the nuanced conversation, and maybe watched the whole thing. I personally believe that, but that I guess is just a reflection of the economy that we're in now, the clip attention economy. And it's a little demoralizing, to be honest, when you go out there and you have a nuanced take where you're criticizing both sides, and then it's immediately spliced up, and the part where you're criticizing one side is shared like crazy by the other side, and the other is totally ignored. Then the part where you're criticizing the other side gets shared by the other side and then ignored by... Ay, Dios mío. But I stand 10 toes down on that. I really do think it's embarrassing, and it's interesting that even the kind of left-wing panelists, so Neera Tanden was on there. She's kind of a centrist Democrat power broker, more in the establishment Democrat camp. And then Jamel Hill was on there, who's more of a left-wing progressive. Didn't really disagree with anything I had to say. Like, even they can kind of see that, wow, Democrats really botched this, especially because they're supposed to be the party that cares about women and cares about, Believe Women and all this stuff. This whole saga really, and I should clarify, Zoran Mamdani in particular, the mayor of New York City, when I said I meant to say withdraw support, not endorsement, because I don't think he formally endorsed Graham Platner, but he only called for Platner publicly to drop out after the allegation of sexual assault from a left-leaning woman. He did not call for him to drop out after the Republican-leaning woman, Lindsay Fifield, detailed with corroboration, including diary entries and friends she told at the time, which is a good sign somebody's not suddenly making something up if they've at the time told people years before they would have had any reason to. Um, yeah, he didn't call out then. He didn't call for Graham Platner to drop out then. Neither did any of these Democratic leaders, and I think that is absolutely disgraceful. So I stand 10 toes down on that. Now we're going to take a look at my second clip of the night that also went viral, but was mostly shared by like left-leaning aggregators, because I did call out the Republican hypocrisy on these kinds of issues, and how I don't really think they have moral high ground when it comes to upstanding, caring about character in politics and all this stuff. And I pointed this out in the context of Republican social media accounts, for example, like for the official GOP, are all mocking Democrats as, if you voted for Platner, you voted for rapists, or you're the party of rapists, or whatever. And it's like, there's just no self-awareness, no self-reflection. And we'll get into some of the details. First, though, I want to take a second and look at the Kalshi odds. And apparently, from our channel partners at Kalshi, there's still a 62% chance people think that the Democratic Party will win this Maine Senate seat with whoever replaces Graham Platner, and only a 38% chance that the GOP will win the seat with Susan Collins. Now, I'm following this market with interest. Kalshi is the first CFTC-regulated exchange dedicated to trading on the outcome of future events. And I'm a channel partner with Kalshi, of course. But I'm following this market with interest because this seems low to me. Like, I might place a prediction on Susan Collins coming out on top, because she's won races before where she was down in the polling. And yes, the momentum will be strong with the Democrats in the midterm election, just in general, but she is resilient electorally. And there's a lot of mud, or what's the right phrase? But there's a lot of a cloud hanging over the Democrats on this election, on this race with the Graham Platner scandal and everything. So she seems undervalued there to me. Anyway, if you do want to check out Kalshi, you can use my code BRADP when you download the phone app, or sign up on the website to get $20 free when you trade $20. But it's interesting to see the markets evolve and change in real time as news, like very big news in this case, it drops, and how it affects the probabilities. I find it really cool. But now let's go to that second clip, where I challenged the Republican panelists that I was on with, Scott Jennings and Peter Meyer, both of whom I got respect for. That's the thing about me, is I'm not going on there to insult anyone. I'm not going on there to have personal beefs but I am going on there to, whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, challenge you on your perspective if I think something's not adding up. And that's what I wanted to do by asking, hey guys, I'm seeing all the Republicans suddenly talk about how terrible Democrats are for not condemning Graham Platner, and how they were defending somebody credibly accused of abusing a woman, and how disgraceful that is, and all this stuff. And I totally 1000% agree, but I'm getting whiplash from some of the hypocrisy here. Because I'll just flash this on screen. Remember, guys, this is from Axios. 27 women have accused Trump of some form of sexual misconduct. And he was, of course, found responsible in a civil court for abusing one of those women, E. Jean Carroll. And I guess the way I look at it is, even if 90% of them are lying, right, of those women, that's still several women he would have harmed, the 10% that are telling the truth. Even if 80% of them are lying, 20% would mean he's harmed more women than Graham Platner. And I don't know if those women are telling the truth or not. I don't know at the end of the day what did or didn't happen, but there's so many personal scandals that are just totally accepted and overlooked among Republicans. You look at someone like Ken Paxton in Texas as well. It's not just Trump. He's just the most obvious example, but he is just littered with corruption and personal infidelity and scandals, and Republicans are rallying around him in Texas. You look at, there's several members of the House who've been accused, like Representative Max Miller, who's a Republican, has been accused of physically abusing his wife, his ex-wife, who is actually the daughter of a Republican senator. And people are standing by him. He's not really been held accountable for that. There just seems to be some egregious double standards here, and I wanted to call that out and just see what All right, what's your explanation? So I did do that. Let's watch that clip.
Presidency and the Republican Party.
I was just going to ask, honestly, Scott, Peter, maybe you can answer this. As an independent, I really feel like everyone's abandoned any pretense of character in politics. But I do agree Republicans have been particularly egregious at that. And when we have this serious corroborated allegation against Graham Platner, but you have dozens of accusations against Donald Trump, one of them was litigated, you have a court finding against him, isn't that significant more weight behind accusations against Donald Trump than there even is against Graham Platner? How can one be disqualifying but not both?
Well, I mean, the president would say there isn't serious corroboration on these accusations against him.
There's a judgment.
That's what he would
There's
argue.
a judgment.
I'll just pause on that and say that some of the accusations against President Trump aren't really corroborated, but some of them are. And E. Jean Carroll, for example, well, she's not I mean, there's some serious problems with that case, and with her as kind of a credible narrator, she's a little cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. And that's why I'm saying I don't know if he did what she accuses him of doing, but she did have two witnesses testify that she told them at the time when the alleged incident happened about Trump attacking her. And so that is corroboration. That is similar to what you have in a case like when they're accused of Graham Platner, right? And there's contemporaneous corroboration. And ultimately, it was litigated in a civil court. And a civil court has a significantly lower burden of proof than a criminal court, of course, but it's still a jury finding after a deliberative process where both sides present evidence and arguments. And that's a lot more than Graham Platner has had. Now, I still think Graham Platner should drop out, but it's like, if he is facing a few accusations he denies, none of which have been litigated at all, why does he have to drop out for that? But yet many, many more allegations against Donald Trump, including one that was litigated and he was found responsible for, isn't disqualifying. I don't really see, if you approach that question from a nonpartisan perspective, how you square that circle. And that's what I wanted to ask with this clip. And I gave them the chance to respond. Let's see.
Judgment by a jury, a federal jury.
Yeah, and the person who accused him couldn't even remember when it happened.
Well, okay, so, that's up to the jury.
That's the argument.
That's the jury.
At the same time, Trump identified the person who accused him as his ex-wife in those proceedings. But what do you say? I mean, you said what Trump would say. What would you say to the question that Brad had?
Look, my view is this: if there is serious allegations, if there's serious evidence or corroboration,
I mean,
everybody has to take responsibility.
To Brad's point, those are serious allegations. Okay, those are serious allegations. And then if you add to the look, I don't want to. It's not a. I think it is just a fair question that if you're going to be throwing the book at Graham Platner, not just about what the women have accused him of, but also about his own statements about women and rape, then you should at the very least have a look at Donald Trump. He's on video saying that he could grab women by their genitals.
Have we not played that video 15,000 times?
That's exactly the point. That's exactly the point.
And the American people have voted. I think,
okay.
No,
well, then you should.
Well, I think that's what Graham Platner is arguing, is that the Maine voters voted. And that's why Democrats said, actually, no, that's not good enough. You are not a good enough candidate to hold this job. And that's a different position.
So there's the end of that clip. And I just wanted to ask the question and then sit back and see how people responded. We got a couple responses there. One was just Scott saying, well, the president would say he doesn't believe the accusations against him and he doesn't think they're well substantiated. Okay. Graham Platner says the same. But then the second point from Peter Meyer, who I like a lot, both personally and professionally, I thought he did a great job as my former congressman in Grand Rapids, Michigan. He's also on the panel there. He says, like, aren't we relitigating this stuff again from Trump? The voters already voted. Yes, but that's not really a defense. The only reason, and I don't love to do this, I think sometimes you'll raise what will happen in a debate is you will raise like a substantive criticism of Democrats on an issue, and they will respond by just bringing up Trump and something he's done wrong that's not directly related to this as some sort of like whataboutist justification. That's not what I'm doing here, or what I was trying to do here, because the distinction, the difference is that it's the same fundamental thing, and you have the official Republican social media accounts for the Republican Party trolling Democrats over supporting an abuser, obviously then it is fair game to say, what about Trump? And that's not a like whataboutism, deflecting, changing topic, trying to just put it back on Trump. That's like a total asking you to practice what you preach and see if you have a moral high ground when you're trying to take a moral high ground. I don't really view it as whataboutism in the same way that, like, if I bring up, oh, Democrats are pushing, to medically transition kids and that's not safe, that's reckless, that's irresponsible, and you go, well, what about Trump and E. Jean Carroll? That's like a bad faith deflection to a different topic. This, to me, is the same fundamental question of allegations of misconduct being disqualifying or not. So I think it's fair game. And I don't really think that, the voters spoke on it or the voters voted on it answers anything. Because by that logic, if Graham Platner stayed in the race and won, then it would just be over. Okay, well, the voters voted and they didn't care, so forget about it. I don't really think that is how sexual assault allegations or physical allegations should work. I don't know, maybe I'm crazy. Anyway, guys, I really enjoyed my appearance on the show. Obviously, I have a different perspective than a lot of the panelists and the guests, but I appreciate the opportunity to talk to people face to face, hash out your differences, have an open dialogue and debate, and hopefully not get personal or go after each other and just argue about the ideas and the substance. And I do appreciate that about Abby Phillip and about her show. They're doing something that only a few other people are doing in all of media, which is actually fostering dialogues and debates. And I think that's the most important thing, because when we stop talking to each other, when we just totally silo off into echo chambers and just bounce off of the people that agree with us and become more and more worked up and more radical and more out of touch with what the other side believes, that's where things start to get really dark. That's where we get people justifying violence and extremism. That's where we get people becoming even more and more extreme and losing sight of the common humanity that we all have. So I support the mission of that show, even if it's chaotic at times, even if it, can be dramatic and entertainment TV or WWE TV, whatever you want to say about it. I appreciate the mission of what they're trying to do. And I was happy with how this, obviously there's a couple other segments that we talked about that maybe I'll post clips from, but this was the big one where I got to say my piece and apparently it resonated with some people online. I also think that's interesting to see the way the media echo chambers work, that I spoke for 3 minutes right back to back, and one side clipped out the first half and the other side clipped out the second half. That to me is a microcosm of a lot of things we could unpack that are probably not super healthy for our discourse and our democracy. But anyway, guys, thanks for being here. Thanks to those of you who turned on your TVs just to watch me at 10 p.m. and send me messages. That really touches me here. I don't know. I'm like, wow, y'all are actually loyal. I don't know. That means the world to me. Thank you guys so much for being here, for supporting me. If you do want to support me as I try to do an independent career in this hyper-partisan and tribalistic media environment, the best way to do so is by becoming a channel member here on YouTube. Hit the join button or the link in the description. But with that, guys, that'll be it for today. I'm going to get ready to head over to the airport and fly back to Miami. And thanks so much for being here. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet, all of that. And we'll be back with more real soon.